I teach, whoops, hold on.
We're on. Gamma.
All right, how about now? But I still don't hear myself.
Okay. Okay.
Otherwise, I'm going to borrow your mic. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne Alcantara. I'm the director of Annenberg's Career Development Office, and I'm thrilled to welcome you all to our third annual ThinkLA USC Annenberg Marketing and Advertising Night. This started with a partnership from one of our wonderful alum, who I'm going to invite up in a few moments, who's been part of ThinkLA for a long time, and said, we really need to get Annenberg and Marshall and USC students more involved in our professional organization. And so we have worked together to curate a variety of different panels, including our guest tonight that you're going to hear from. So I'd like to have Carol come join me on the stage. Carol is going to talk to you about the ThinkLA membership, which is part of a perk of coming tonight. So please join me in welcoming her and thanking her for curating tonight's panel.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, SC, for having ThinkLA. I'm Carol Terakawa, so I'm actually a volunteer board member for ThinkLA. And my co-partner, Jackie, helped put on the event. I want to thank all our panelists. And tonight, actually, when you swiped your card, Suzanne's going to be able to send you an email to join ThinkLA. So ThinkLA is Southern California's premier advertising and marketing organization. So since this is really your discipline, you should definitely join. You'd be able to volunteer, come out to some of our events. ThinkLA hosts 50 different events and different kinds of events like Motor City West, an entertainment event. There's a television event coming up this Friday. And we bring out thought leaders. Like, you guys are really lucky to have some of the best thought leaders here tonight sharing their insights with you. So Suzanne, Gary, thanks for having us again, and we're delighted to be here.
Well, yes, and let me make an intro to Gary from over here. We'll go back to the mic. But Gary Webster was an adjunct faculty here at Annenberg. I think several of you have probably been in his classes. This is also Gary's third year of being a very dynamic moderator, and we're thrilled to have him back. So thank you.
Thank you. Do I just begin?
Please do.
Hello, everybody. So before I introduce the panelists, I want to explain to you what their role is and what your role is tonight. These students are all here because they're going to be graduating and looking for jobs. Okay, let's put it bottom line. And I know what that hysteria is because I hear it every single semester when the search begins. You folks have an extraordinary opportunity here to hear these people, hear their wisdom and what they have to say, but then to be able to meet them and be aggressive about meeting them when we have the cocktail hour afterwards, that you actually go up and introduce yourselves, engage them in conversation, demand that they try to meet with you at some point, get their cards, badger them, feel free to be able to go after them in every single way possible, because that's what it's going to take for you folks to find a job in this industry. You folks, on the other hand, these are students. We have to embrace these people. We have to help them and help them shape the future and be open to talk with them and to hear them and to guide them and for you to possibly meet with them outside of this room tonight and outside of Annenberg itself. So that's the ultimate bottom line goal. Those of you who are in my class, I'm always saying to you, what's the bottom line? What are we trying to get to? You're trying to get jobs, guys. That's your bottom line. Okay. So now we're going to go through, and each person's going to introduce themselves. We will start here. No more than a minute.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to come on out to hear us speak. And my name is Quentin Holmes. I am a media planner at Toyota National Headquarters. I've been with the company for over 16 years. And in that current role as a national media planner, what I basically do is we plan model campaigns for all the large vehicles such as the Camry, Corolla, Prius, and so on and so forth, as well as I've done a number of things like branded entertainment, such as like product integrations on different shows and things of that sort.
Great. Next.
Hi there, I'm Jen Prince. I'm at Twitter here in Los Angeles and Santa Monica. I'm a managing director, which means that I oversee 3 different verticals for ad sales. There's media and entertainment, which is comprised of film, television, music, sports, publishing, ticketing, streaming, and then automotive, which is Toyota and others, and then also political and advocacy. So I have a team of about 60 people, and we work with marketing teams and their ad agencies and all constituents on bringing Twitter solutions to them.
Hi everyone, Joanne Nichols. I currently work at Waze, which is a Google company. Prior to moving over to Waze, I actually worked at Google for about 14 years. So I'm a bit of a career monogamist, if you will, which I have a lot of thoughts on that too, if we transition to the career portion of the day. I've managed teams for about 8 years, managed a sales team, and my current team that I manage covers 11 states on the West Coast and all industries and all verticals. So we sell advertising from Starbucks down to Toyota and everything in between.
And I'm Doug Neal. I oversee digital marketing for Universal Pictures. So if you saw Happy Death Day last weekend, that was one of our movies, but we also have The Despicable Me and Fast and Furious and Pitch Perfect in our canon of films. In my responsibilities, I'm overseeing anything that is online or mobile. So it's building websites, it's apps, it's games, it's all the ads that you see, it's buying all the media that we do on Waze and Twitter, and developing all of our social profiles. So Facebook, Google, Twitter, Snapchat, anything that is basically touching your lives. And if you're seeing something from Universal, it's probably coming through my team.
Perfect timing.
Hi, introductions I assume?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Brooke Hauge. I work at Canvas Worldwide, which is an advertising agency here in LA. We're a global agency. I work here in the LA office primarily on the Hyundai Motors accounts. We have a couple of auto accounts and then a couple of nonprofits. So anything that you see in advertising for Hyundai or Kia or Genesis, that comes out of my agency's job. So we're preparing the communication strategies.
Do you two know each other? You should be talking to one another.
I don't.
He's a
but
Toyota.
Now you do.
And you're working with Hyundai.
We're gonna get
So you can see, let me tell you folks something. So my career began in the advertising business too. I was a copywriter and creative director working for major ad agencies. This is an incestuous business where everybody eventually gets to know each other. These two people just announced to me that they used to work together. People move around in this industry a lot. If we were to have this same panel in another 5 years, they'd probably all be at other companies, or they would have already been starting their own companies. It's part of the culture of what this industry is. I just want to be able to tell you, because you missed the very beginning, your job tonight is to be able to inspire these people on their career path in different aspects of communication. They're looking for jobs. They're going to be tackling you to talk about it so that you know this, and you in turn have to be open to them. They're students, okay?
on board.
All right, so I want to make sure everybody understands this. All right, so I'm going to be asking them several questions. First, so you can see critical thinking, creative thinking, and the thinking of the people in the industry. Then we're going to get further into their specific jobs and the way that they think about these jobs. Now, I prepared them with a beginning question, but it's going to be the second question. And they've already asked me, they said, what if we want to pass on your question? I said, perfectly fine. You can throw one at me. You can disagree with me. This is the communications business, folks. So however we do this. But here is my first question, which we cannot ignore. Okay? From your skill set, each of you, if you were hired tomorrow by the Weinstein Company, and they said to you, we need your help to be able to keep this company alive and functioning and thriving, what would be your advice to them from your specific skill set? I'm going to give you guys, as I do in class, as they can tell you, 20 seconds to think about this.
Clarifying question, what would be our advice to them as a potential employee or after they've hired us?
They've hired you.
Got it.
Okay? You're either your company or they've hired you as a consultant for your brain.
But there's okay.
For your brain, your experience, your skill.
Thank you.
Okay. Someone jump in.
Well, I think the starting point with anything that we do, and I look at how I run my department and develop campaigns, is look at what your core strengths are. You know that Harvey has kind of marginalized a lot of what their business is by his reputation, but they still have assets, they still have employees, they still have some ongoing concerns. So I think you'd have to take a little bit of a dive to look at what are those things that you can distance yourself from him. He was a producer and has been involved, but there's still a company at its roots. And so I think you'd have to dive in to take basically an assessment of what you've got that you can work with that can be separated from what Harvey was associated with.
Great.
Yeah, so to add to that, a complete rebrand, a new name, which is already in the works. I don't know, maybe it even came out. I think it's taking the core assets, maybe IP, the mission of the company, which is independent film, and starting over.
I think I have to be extremely passionate about the company and the product, so assuming that I am and I believe in what they want to move forward with, I would be really honest that the core assets also, they need to look at their employees as the core assets and understand how pervasive is this behavior and be able to be really honest on telling certain people and figuring out if there are other pockets of this and very quickly cutting bait with those people as well. And in some way, shape, or form with the rebrand, have a commitment or be forward with how they are rebuilding.
I think for me, I start thinking tactically about, like, if you're going to go from a position of where they are in not so great of a light into strategically what are those stalwarts and those like pillars that really make them who they are, and start building your strategies around that. Because a lot of what we do is our communication, not necessarily just internally on who you are and like what you're going to do, but what's our communication outward from company to you guys? Like, how are you guys going to see this company in a new light, and take those strategies, that those pillars of what they do and how we communicate with that, and tell a new story, and tell a story very clearly and very concisely over and over again, because you're going to have to get people out of the kind of these dark thoughts of who that company is and into a new one. And that happens with the rebrands and things like that, but you're going to have to create strategies that you continuously go forward with a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I think everything everybody said was great. Working at Toyota, I think one of the, if you think back to like 08, 09, when we went through our break issue, having a consistent message, being humble, and then also working through that. Like even to this day, our management will still, you know, will bring that up. Like, we went through this tough time, but we took care of customers. We are committed to you. And so having a consistent message and really following through on that with training for all associates to make sure that these aren't things that will happen moving forward. But I think if you're humble, you make changes, you're honest, and you stay with a consistent message, then you let your actions at that point, you know, work you through that. Because I think back to, like I said, 08, 09, we had tsunamis going on, we had the break issue, and look at us now, we're still doing amazing coming out of that. So it can make you stronger down the line.
And companies can survive. I mean, if you look back to Arthur Andersen, which was one of the big 8 accounting firms. You guys have no idea what that means, but there was, for years, there were 8 accounting firms that ran all of the finances in the world. And in 2001, there was Enron, which is something you may have heard of, that basically took this behemoth that had been around for 100 years down. And they had a consulting arm, Andersen Consulting at the time, which was really separate, but it rebranded itself, to Jen's point, as Accenture. And you probably have heard of Accenture, and they're probably on your campus recruiting. And they came out of it and are just as strong as ever. So you can come through it, but it does take all of these points to kind of make it happen.
Yeah. People still use Uber.
Yeah.
And people still apply to Uber and still accept jobs at Uber today. I think something that's interesting in this particular case also is that the company name is his name. So you have to detach the two and tell a lot of stories of all the good works that are happening without the company. The sum of the individuals is many times greater than one particular individual. And getting out and telling those stories, I think, could be really helpful.
Yeah.
So let me take this a step further. I want to model in front of you people. In this business, there is a lot of teamwork and brainstorming, And also, if you listen to what each of them is really saying and the conclusion they're coming to, there's a rebranding, there's a new story, there may be a new name. And so then you've got to start thinking, after you go through all the strategies, the real proof is in what's your answer going to be? What are your ideas going to be? How do you actually implement something? Because I know that a lot of you learn an awful lot about data and data analysis and research. But then you've got to turn that and implement that into an actual idea that makes the change you want to make. So let's just do a model of brainstorming in front of them, folks. What do we think this, and let's talk and develop and even disagree with each other. What should the story be now? What do we think? Let's start to develop this story. So I'm going to throw some things out here. Does this story in any way reflect the sexual harassment and actually put its finger on it? Do they jump into the actual issue and develop the story out of there? Do they ignore that and just develop a completely different story for themselves? Is their story a societal story now? Is their story simply about the new movies they're making and the new philosophy of the company? So let's talk.
I think, well,
No, go ahead.
For me, it's like you have to get out in front of it in the sense of admitting there's a concern, and then also having a plan to say, this is what we're going to do. Even if you don't have it fully fleshed out, at least to say, admitting there is a concern, and then we're going to take these next steps. Because what it does is it doesn't make you seem like you're just out there hiding and you're not trying to address it. So if you, because I think for most people, they're willing to stick with you or at least hang in there if you're humble, you're ready to fix something and find a solution. And so get out in front of it. That might buy you a little bit of time while you're working on it, and then you can come back later, 3 months, however, with this is the steps we'll be taking. Branding, staffing, training, all those types of things, and then I think you can work through it from there.
Okay.
I think there's a larger, for just a catch-all phrase being diversity, it's horrible to even say that's the catch-all phrase for this, but there's a larger conversation in the zeitgeist about tech and women in higher positions, people of color in higher positions, and that could somehow, I mean, it's very different than sexual harassment and these sexual aggression or the allegations of it. But I think there's a larger story of we want to be a better company, and this is our steps of being better. And addressing it head on, I don't know that needs to play out or that it hasn't already played out in the court of public opinion. And I think focusing on we're not perfect, we're humble, and there's a larger problem across all of corporate America in many institutions, and we want to be part of that solution.
Well, I think part of it too is the leadership and vision that were to come in to run the company, and the Weinsteins are so closely associated, and they're the ones that brought on the talent relations and found the projects and were cultivating just to the types of films and entertainment that they were producing. If you're going to kind of rebrand and restructure and reset the ship, you got to have strong leadership, and you got to find somebody that can help basically bring some credibility into what they're doing. And it may come from within. I don't know enough about what their structure is, but they may have to bring somebody that's just a known leader, and then suddenly people will start to respond to whatever their new vision is.
I was just thinking about like the NFL. If you think of concussions, how long they kind of went dragging their heels. We don't know if there's a problem. And then, I mean, years go by and all these different situations. And then now when you got to domestic violence, and obviously that took a little while, but I think they moved a lot quicker that time. So, you know, now it's protests. And so I think the window's getting a lot shorter in terms of knowing that you need to get out ahead of these things and be transparent, have a plan, communicate that plan, and then literally follow through with it.
Well, and they have to be, companies have to be faster because the brand now belongs to the consumers. And the internet allows push button publishing to happen instantly. So in the case of Toyota, if I remember, because I worked on Toyota during the tsunami and the unintended acceleration, you know, the days of spending a week to get corporate communication in the room with PR, with da-da-da, those days are gone. You have to be able to make decisions quickly and have those basic tenets, like you said, whether humble and some of the others, leadership, and get in front of it.
1, 2, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I feel like they do have to address it, but it could be in the form of like a movement, or the next 6 films they create are female directors, and they need to just take a stance, I think, on the women's voice, the power of it, what happened, all the secrets, the allegations, but I think it could be done in a very positive way. So that's what I was going to say, is I feel like there is a story to tell where they can course correct, with definitely new leaders, possibly moving to Los Angeles and out of New York, like in just kind of a rebirth of keeping the vision of, once again, the types of films that they create, but I think with a heavy female perspective and voice.
Great, go ahead.
I think that I'll echo all of that. I'm echoing everything that you guys have said. I think it's really about being part of the solution versus addressing part of the problem. So taking the Weinstein Company and being part of like, what's the new wave of how we do this, and addressing that from addressing it politically from a company structure standpoint, and just saying that we have done this and we stand for this and we are going to work our way into some of the things that we've set up here, whether that's, you know, creating a movement or course correcting. It's really about taking a stand and moving it towards being the solution or part of the solution versus addressing just the problem, because we are so consumer driven at this point, and just saying what you want out there isn't really going to address the problem. It's just going to create your problem bigger and bigger. You need to be part of that solution, and how do you become part of that solution as a company, and doing that quickly.
So folks, let me turn around to all of you and make you think for a second. Not about the Weinstein Company, but about the communications business. What lessons have you just learned watching this discussion that you need to know if you want to go into this profession? Go ahead.
Identify the core strengths and then really work from there to kind of jumpstart your solution.
Great. What other lessons, folks?
Well, you have to create the story.
Talk a little louder so everybody can hear you.
Oh, sorry. You have to create the story that you, for the, keeping the consumers in mind, and how the brand is perceived by the people who consume and use your brand, so that way you can make them, help make them look good, and then also focusing on your company's core strengths.
Great. 2 other people. What other lessons have you learned? Go ahead.
Understanding the context of the situation, and that brainstorming is not happening in a vacuum, but your actions and your company's actions do affect whether it's within the industry or the consumers themselves.
Great. Go ahead.
Like a team needs to incorporate people from different perspectives from different parts of the industry. And I feel like the communication flow here is like everybody is working upon someone's opinions and adding their own experience onto that, and which build a stronger solution.
Great. Somebody else wants to say something? Go ahead. Did you have your hand up? Oh, somebody else have your hand up? Oh, so let me say this, folks. All of this of what you said is absolutely true. But there was something else that was going on up here. These people knew what was going on in the world. You have to be able, you need to be consuming information in this profession, particularly today. You need to know what's going on. You need to be reading things. You need to be seeing things. You need to be listening. You need to know how to discuss, how to have teamwork. You need to know how to be critical thinkers to say, that's a good idea, that's not a good idea. On the other hand, you have to be open thinkers to hear other people's ideas and say, I'm not the only one who has an idea here. So you are going into an intelligent, critically thinking profession. This is not one where you can hide out in a corner and be meek and not say anything. You've got to be able to be participatory. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. You have to have a point of view.
Yes, you have to have a point of view, folks. Go ahead. Louder so everybody can hear you. You're communication people. People got to hear you.
This is not a business for wallflowers.
Class with you. I love this.
I know.
Any Monday night you want to come
Can we have
sit
a
in.
one-on-one?
You're more than welcome. Go ahead.
So you guys are talking about how communication is very important. What if you're an intern who has a point of view and you don't think that like an idea that's brought to the table is a good idea? How do you communicate that to people who have higher positions than you?
So the first thing you do is you find a good therapist. Okay. because this is a constant problem for interns, and it's a problem everywhere. Here's what the issue is that I think, and I wasn't planning on going here, but we'll talk about this for a second. You have to know where power lies when you work in a company. You have to do a power scan. Who makes the decision? Who has the power? Who do you need to get to know so that you're listened to and respected? What do you need to do in your job so that people don't just think you're a young upstart millennial who's coming in and saying, I know everything, but they have respect and say, this person seems to know what they're talking about?
I can say that at Twitter, we welcome diverse perspectives, and I don't want to run a team with all the different layers and levels where everyone feels like they have to only be working by this rule or in this way, and being a robot is just not going to benefit anybody. So I would say any perspectives diverse. I think it is great to understand when to say something like, you know what, I actually disagree, and just having a point of view, backing it up with data or a story or an example. So I would just, if you're going to speak up, which you should, you honestly should, you're not there, whether you're interning or working, just to be silent. But I would definitely bring things up with some meat behind them.
Yeah.
It'll help.
Never underestimate the power of tone and packaging. And you could say the same message with two different tones, and how that lands with that person could be completely opposite. So as long as you're understanding the position of power and also balancing that tone.
And I think it's meeting questions with questions sometimes, because we don't necessarily always understand why the decisions are being made that are being made, and maybe they are wrong, maybe they're not. But I think if you start from a position of, why are you doing that, or why are we doing that in that way, I think that you absolutely 100% should always voice opinions, but perhaps start with a question of why in a tone that's proper. And also, like, when you have something to say, back it up with some sort of like information. So just echoing what these guys are saying, but always, I guess I tend to always try and teach my teams and myself to start with a question of why are we down this path, and what's the genesis of this? So at least you understand when you're going after your disagreement with it, you understand how you got to that place, or they got to that place.
And I encourage you to do your homework, to kind of following up on what Brooke said. My team always has 3 interns as part of our summer, and we have a page that rotates through, and I encourage them. We actually will use them as mini focus groups, but often they'll have just an immediate reaction, and example, you should do a Snapchat lens for this film, and they haven't done the homework to understand where we have positioned that product in terms of our campaigns. And so, and it doesn't take much to just ask a couple questions to say, wait, have you thought about doing these in the past? What's been the success, or what? And then you don't sound naive when you're making your suggestion or giving your feedback, because you've actually talked to some people to understand, like, maybe there was a reason why we're doing what we're doing, or maybe not, and you're going to actually provide some value. So just do a little bit of homework before you kind of chime in.
Did you want to say something or not?
No.
Okay, so let me say something. What is your name? Lucille. Rocio. Okay, so Rocio, good thinking that you raised your hand, that you had the courage to ask a question like this. This is exactly the kind of thing you need to be doing when you go out job interviewing, that you are not afraid to put yourself out there and to be able to ask. You guys are going to have a lot of time to ask questions. Let me move on with my questions with them. All right, so folks, the communication business has become a powerful business, more so every few months. The communication business today represents all of the new evolutions in technology and how to use them. And communication is moving to the center of organizations and companies. It has power. Now, knowing that it has power, what value system should it be carrying? What should we be thinking about when we are using this powerful tool in our professions as far as what the value system should be?
I can start with Twitter, which is a complicated one. So Twitter, as you know, is a very open platform. It's not about who you know, it's who you want to connect to, connect with, what you want to talk about, every side of the equation, good and bad. We hear things we don't want to hear on Twitter. We see things we don't want to see on Twitter. Yet our CMO, who started last February. So for 10 years, we existed without a marketing team, yet we're selling marketing all day long to Doug and to Quentin. And so she just kicked off this campaign that was hashtag See Every Side. So a conversation can't be one-sided. It's not a conversation if it is one. And so because of this open nature of this platform, which is so real time that information breaks on Twitter before it gets to CNN or to reporters, it is the value system is that we have to be open to seeing and hearing all things, but with the belief that Twitter's leadership is working on trust and safety and trolling and all these other concerns, which they definitely are, especially in the last few weeks, because it reared its ugly head. So the bottom line is, I think, one, just know everything you do on social media, not just Twitter, gets seen, it's public, it's archived, it's recorded, it doesn't just go away. On Twitter, you can't edit a tweet. You can delete it, but your tweet travels. So there's 50 impressions to every tweet on average. So your one tweet may only get a few likes and a few views, but it travels. And it's because, once again, it's this access of not just who you know, but getting access to brands and celebrities and athletes and joining conversations, movements. There's a lot going on right now with Me Too and everything else. So I would just say, just be aware of its openness. And there's the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes along with it. And it's our responsibility, going into responsibilities, of making sure people feel safe on the platform and they also get what they want on the platform and not what they don't want. Yet we have to understand just the nature of the platform. It's very different than Facebook, for example.
I think one thing that today's communication, to some extent, has allowed for some creativity too, and that to Jen's point, on Twitter for us is very different than what we do on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, and so we have strategies against each of those platforms, but we also can have some creativity. And I give the example, if any of you have seen the movie Mamma Mia, we're making the Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again, coming out next summer. And
buy your tickets.
Cher is going to be in Mamma Mia, and as a way to announce Cher. The old school way was you would do a press release and you'd send it to Variety or The Hollywood Reporter and you'd say, there's a new casting announcement, Cher's in the movie. What we did instead was Cher, who has a very active Twitter account, actually posted a picture of go-go boots and boas up, and it's like, I'm getting excited, and then she posted lyrics to the song Fernando, which is a ABBA song, which she'll be singing in the movie, and then there was another tweet that she put out, and people started to get the hint, and eventually somebody said, are you in Mamma Mia? And she's like, damn right I'm in Mamma Mia. But it was a different way to make an announcement and to kind of use today's platforms to just be creative and kind of engage our audiences in the process, as opposed to just doing the old school, here's a release, and just kind of generating it that way.
Mm-hmm. Great one.
I think it's hard because it's hard for some of these platforms, and the responsibility, you talk about the value system, the responsibility has shifted so much to platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, where it's so easy for anyone to appear like a professional news outlet or reporter and put anything out there. I mean, we see this happening with fake news. And just from the Google coffers, and having also worked on YouTube, the amount of engineering resources we put behind this is astonishing. I mean, YouTube alone, this is probably an outdated stat from when you worked there, but at least I know it's safe because it's outdated. There are 4 hours of content uploaded every single minute to YouTube. That means by the time this whole panel is done, we will have 10 days of non-stop content that has been uploaded to the platform. So the engineering resources, the code you have to write, the ways you have to catch that, news derivatives, someone publishes a news story and then all these other outlets catch the derivative. Well, if it's fake news and they grab the derivative, how do you stop that from spreading even further? So those are all people that are much smarter than I working on these things, but it is kind of amazing seeing how these platforms have to change how they operate and evolve to try and clean some of this up.
Great. What you guys say?
I think for Toyota, for us, in my role for the media department, media team, like I said, we spend so much money in advertising across TV, print, digital, sponsorships, integration, so on and so forth. And now you have programmatic. And I think one of the big things for us is we have like do not buy lists. And so as a company, there's places and environments where we don't want to have our content. And so when you think of like the YouTubes, where you could be running an ad, and next thing you know, it's next to a terrorist video, and then next thing you know, somebody screenshotting that, sending it to our executives, and it's like, what is Toyota doing here? So I think now it's one of the big things for us is really just finding trusted, safe environments where our content can live, and trying to avoid many of those different pitfalls in, with the rise of programmatic and data and all, and so that's one of the big things to us.
Great.
And from the agency perspective, my team internally at Canvas Worldwide and all teams across Canvas, we take it very seriously. So the example of, your content running against a terrorist video happened to our company. There was a big YouTube thing that happened earlier this year with a lot of different brands that were running against, inappropriate content. We call that inappropriate content. And it's inappropriate because our brand does not want to associate with that. We do not want to be connected to that. So as an agency, it is our job to be agents and stewards of our clients' money and where those placements are being seen. So there's a lot of, do not buy lists, blacklists, things that will whitelist. This is okay to run on, this is not. This type of content we are never to be aligned with. And we have a lot of different, in the background, kind of programs and actually bots that are trying to game the system to try and make sure that our stopgaps are in place and in place very, very well, because it's, I don't want Hyundai calling me saying, with a screenshot saying, what are you guys doing? Our job is to make sure that as an agency, we are being good agents to our client and making sure that that does not get there, because those are the types of things that we don't want to run against. So the value system of where a brand lies is a whole ecosystem of people working together. It's the platforms, it's the brands, it's the agencies, it's the partners you choose to run with. And we are very honest and very upfront with all different platforms and all different partners that we choose to put on our communication plans to make sure they understand that our brand safety is very strict and non-negotiable, and that you'll have your money taken away from a partner standpoint in no time at all.
One other thing too is you think about the rise of influencers and the amount of vetting that goes in with just trying to find the right influencer. And even when you do that, who knows, maybe they'll tweet something crazy the next day and you're like, what is this kind of, and it goes off the rails. So it's tough.
Okay, folks, did you want to say one more thing?
No,
okay.
I'm
okay.
great.
With digital natives being people who are now 15 years old, 20 years old, maybe 22 or 23 years old, and everything changing so quickly, do you worry about becoming irrelevant?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about it.
Absolutely. Actually, I facilitate a training at Google, internally at Google, to empower women to further advance their careers. And we do an exercise where we say, if you really knew me, you would know that. And my mine is that I'm going to become irrelevant. That's why I said I need career counseling. I was hoping you were going to help me work on that.
Okay, so I got to just stop you and tell you this, as my students will tell you. The first day of class, I say to them, folks, I'm 66 years old. Yeah. Okay? I'm going to teach you how to create ideas and concepts that are going to be used in all of your digital media, because you guys know how to put out information, but you don't know how to engage people and create the ideas and concepts. You're going to teach me what's happening out there. So that the best way to know this is to work with these people, because they're coming in and telling. Last week I learned from my students about ghosting and zombieing. I had no clue what that was. Okay, do you know what those are?
I know ghosting, but...
Okay. Zombieing is when the ghost comes back to life 3 months later and texts you that disappeared in your life.
At 2 a.m.
And that's a zombie. They've come alive. I said, Jesus, I had no idea.
Yeah, that's the dating world. So yes, I do get concerned about becoming irrelevant, and I know this acutely from working at Google. We all have the same amount of 24 hours. There is no way I can learn absolutely everything about product or about a certain niche that maybe someone else can. So what are my strengths? And I've had to do a real inventory of this, especially having been through a couple of maternity leaves and different versions of my career. What am I good at? I am very good at giving direct feedback to people that is hard, sometimes hard, and I'm good at communicating what people need to do. And I just have to be okay with that and know that that is my strength in whatever team I'm in and fit that role and know the role I play.
Great.
So that's how I try to stay relevant.
All right, I heard you moving on that question.
Moving?
You're kind of like, I saw you.
You're ready to go.
You were ready to go.
Now look, I think it's a question. If you're 22 or 45 or 65, you have to always just do the best job you can, and it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, you have the potential of being replaced or irrelevant, but I think that's kind of a bullshit approach to it. I think I'm 53. I'm running the digital team. My team is all in their 20s. I'm not going anywhere right now. Part of the reason why I'm not going anywhere is because I think I've built a strong team and are doing the things to help make sure that they are doing the best damn job that they can. And I try to keep myself relevant by, I have 3 teenage daughters who actually are the digital natives that can kind of keep me informed. And so I think you do have to work a little bit harder, but by the same token, I don't think you just give up. You think you just kind of just tackle it.
Right.
I mean, for me, I just think about like the last 8 years from when social happened. I think you just have to be open to trying new things, because I think those people that are open, that are willing to try new things, take on new opportunities, new roles, those are the people that are going to be rewarded. If you're set in your ways and no, I can only do this, then you're going to be stuck in the box in one little corner here. So just be open. Things are always going to change. And I mean, 5 years from now, who knows where it's going to be, but just be open, be curious, take on new projects, be the person that says yes for those new things, because sometimes those new things can really help accelerate your career.
Anything, guys? Yes.
I guess no, I don't worry about becoming irrelevant, and I feel like that's different than what everyone else is saying up here. But there's,
it's great.
I think I start from always, there's a sign at my desk, it's now removed, but there was, wait, what? And there, in my birthday card last year, it says hashtag tell me more. I'm always very curious, like, wait, what? I don't know what we're talking about. What is that? And I'm always asking more questions than perhaps having answers. And I've always looked at this whole closed loop situation. You start at a certain point and you're gonna be the expert in the room, and then you're not, and then you're going to be at the bottom again, and then it's going to kind of keep going round and round and round, and I think that when you guys are talking about that you're running teams, and like that is a skill set that I'm at the bottom on. I'm hoping to get to that point, and you guys are the experts in the room, and then you're have a tipping shift, and then I think it's all. Everything's relevant, I guess, is my point. I guess I don't think that anyone is really becoming irrelevant unless you decide to stop asking the questions and stop learning. And it doesn't sound like anyone in this room is looking like they're going to stop learning.
I question myself every day saying, am I good at this in some area of my day? I'm 44, I have 3 daughters, I'm working extremely full-time, and I learn so much from everyone on my team, and they are in their 20s as well. I think that it's, like you're saying, Brooke, just a cycle. And you have your moments and your days and your weeks and your months where you just feel like you're on top of the world, and then you have your moments where you just kind of suck at certain things. So like Joanne said, it's like you find your few things you're good at. I think also from a position of leadership, just admitting faults. So I very oftentimes will tell my team what I'm not great at and how I've tackled that over time. And I still might not be great at that. But I think just admitting builds trust and relationship and kind of closes that gap of kind of the millennials to then my being in my 40s. And staying relevant, I think, is just trying to learn from the group. I think for the rest of my life I will learn from the group. I also feel like I am literally a little girl dressed up, and I go to work playing dress up. So sometimes I just feel like still, even in my 40s, that I am in my 20s. So I think it's also just trying to stay
Folks,
current.
a bit of decorum here, okay? We're talking all about digital. Shut down your computers and cell phones. And let me also say, it's impolite when you have people who are giving up their time and you're on your cell phones and computers. So it's not the right thing to do. Okay, now that I've admonished, let's go forward. I'm going to throw 3 words out to you folks. and I want you to rank them the way that you think they belong in today's changed world. Research, creativity, strategy. And with research, let me say data goes along with that. Okay, research, data, strategy, creativity.
And ranking them in what order?
Ranking
Just
them
priority?
in what you think are the priorities of today. If you were interviewing people and you wanted to know what they're capable of.
I think I start with research.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm a question asker. I like teams that are question askers. I like data. I like to understand. I like to get into it. I think I then go to strategy. What are some stalwart, pillars of strategic communication that we can kind of develop on, and then what is the creative thinking outside the box to innovate on those? I think that's where I go, but always research first. That was not a question.
Let's just go down the line.
Same order.
Okay.
Same order.
Same order.
If it's, I guess, if this is just about attacking a marketing problem, I'd go the same order. If you're actually talking about the business, like we can't market a film if we don't have great creatives and great, we have to start with the product. And the product is coming from a creative instinct. It's not, we're not going to go out and research and say, oh, a bunch of 15-year-olds want to see a movie with X. It's going to come up with an idea, a book, a story, and that's really what drives our industry. But if it's about, okay, you've got the movie, and now what are you going to do? Then I would agree with this order.
All right, any other thinking on this?
Well, it's just really interesting because you're absolutely right. Through the lens of creating films, you're nothing if you don't have the good creative. It's nothing. Whereas coming from Google, every decision is driven by data. So looking at through the lens of the companies we work for and the types of things like marketing cars, people's lives are in your hands. You have to have research and data rather than we want fiery red and show the grill up close on the commercial. So I'm not surprised at how it came out and that Doug's point of view was a creative.
Anything else? Okay. One last thing before we get specifically into more of your jobs. I'm going to throw some words at you and just see how you react. Steve Jobs.
Visionary.
Yes.
Genius.
Incredible.
Okay. Bitcoin. Blockchain.
Confused.
Yeah.
So confused. Why? Wait, why?
Pointless.
Okay. How about you folks?
I said, huh.
That counted.
Okay. All right.
word.
Last thing. Truth.
Rare.
The utmost importance.
Yeah. Refreshing when you see it.
Desired, yes.
A must.
Okay. Let me ask you folks before we go into the specific questions. Any reactions to what you've heard up here? Go ahead.
Well, I think it's very helpful to hear them list the skills, it was very helpful to hear them list the skills as far as like research and strategy and creative, so that way you know when you're interviewing or applying for internships where to, I guess, stress if you have any strengths, and I guess also depends on the industry that you're interested in as well.
Great. Anybody else have a reaction? Please go ahead.
Just going along with like the constantly asking questions idea. I'm good. Yeah. I was just wondering, have you ever felt like necessarily pigeonholed in your industry or like pigeonholed into a various career, or is there horizontal growth?
Hold on. We're going to get to your questions. Okay. I'm looking for reactions as to what you're learning here. And then hold your question. Go ahead.
Okay. So So I'm really excited to hear that life is a cycle, because sometimes when you're a college graduate, it seems like it's only building, and it could be scary, and you're like, maybe I'm not keeping up with that pace, but it's comforting to know that it's cycling. Maybe you'll be the beginner in the room, then the expert, and it goes all the way back around.
All right. So, folks, next question here. One of these students comes to you and interviews with you for a job. What do you want? What are you looking for? What are you listening for?
So I'm into basics, interview 101 tactics, which is a thank you card afterwards, whether it's an email these days is fine, but a handwritten is like over the top, and it just goes back to traditions that stick with me. I think asking for the email address of that individual before you arrive, so you can email them with excitement to see them, even if it's just a few sentences. So taking the pre and the post and really still elaborating there. I think dressing the part. So you dress the part that you want to play. So even if you're interviewing at Facebook and they tell you to come in jeans, you don't. And it doesn't have to be a prom dress, but you just, I think, stepping it up, or like Joanne's outfit's very on point because she's in dark jeans, but she's dressing it up. So I think the presentation of before you arrive, arriving, and when you leave, just kind of what that means is what I look for. The conversation it completely varies, and I'll let other people chime in. But the basics.
I would say number one, did you do your homework on the company? So being able to, so if you were coming in for auto, you have basic understanding of Toyota, its products, its culture. That would be helpful. And then number two, also, I think any types of portfolios or leave behinds that can kind of make you stand out a little bit more. I remember we had hired a guy recently, and his resume was pretty good, but then he came in with this portfolio that really just kind of also just made him just stand out that much more than the other candidates. So sometimes your resume allows you to kind of put down the basics, but something that's a little bit more creative, that it gives you a little bit more freedom. So that was just another thing that kind of helped set him apart and showcase, when it was two people that were really close. So
I think asking for the job. So if you have a great conversation, whether it's during that time or afterwards, not literally saying, can I have that job, but expressing what it would mean for you to work there and why you're the right person for the role, and then possibly asking for the job, I think makes a mark.
Many times people talk about how this job will help them, but not how they can contribute to the job or the team. So instead of saying, oh, I'm just looking for a change, this will be a great fit for me. Okay, well, talk to me about how you're going to enhance the team. Also, when given a question, are able to show range. So whether they have been strategic or they've been tactical, what the team's role was in meeting the objective and what their individual role was in meeting the objective. I look for that. And then, of course, the basics. And I didn't get your name when you asked the question about how we ranked creative data. I think it's important to also ask the employer, of these 5 attributes, how would you rank them in what you're looking for? And that shows just some type of thinking or interest in the role. Many times people just wait for you to ask questions. It's kind of boring.
I look for confidence. I want to see somebody who comes in and is self-assured. It's a lot of your posture and how you hold yourself. It's how you look at me, but also how you can talk about yourself. You should, in your mind, be thinking through the types of questions that you're going to be asked, and you should have answers, and you should feel confident about those answers. And that's practice with a friend or a colleague or whomever, so that you can go in and if they ask, why'd you take this class, you have an answer for what that was. The other thing I look for is passion. I want to see that there's something that gets you excited, that there's something that you get fired up about. And it may not be directly related to the job you're interviewing for, but it might be that you are a ultra-marathon ultramarathoner, and for whatever reason, you just love to go out on the weekends and just run, and there's something about you that just like lights that up. And because I think that shows that if we can get you into the right position, you're going to get passionate about what we're doing too. And so I just look for that kind of spark and that energy in how you express yourself in the interview process.
I think I do a lot of looking for responsibility. So I have had the great fortune of interviewing for a lot of associate levels, so people who have come out of like maybe their first year of a job, or they're looking for their first job ever. And a lot of what I look for is responsibility. Are you responsible? Do you show up on time? Are you dressed appropriately? All the things that everyone said up here. Can you talk about yourself and your experience confidently? I don't care if your job was at McDonald's. I care that you had a job and that you have something to share about it. I don't care that you had no job, but you can show some sort of leadership or some communication to me that you did something with a program at school or whatever. For me, it's a lot of understanding, like, can you do this? And like anything that you get passionate about, because that's kind of that glimmer of what you get passionate about. When I find projects for you that you light up about, I associate that with what happened in the interview of like, okay, they loved ultramarathon, like this project. These are the type of projects that they really excel at, and I can look for more projects like that for team members. But it's a lot about just being, you might not know all the questions, so come prepared with maybe not the answers, but maybe with some more questions. We want to know that you want to be part of this team as much as we want to hire somebody to be part of this team, because at the end of the day, you're oftentimes coming into kind of a group that's got a little bit of a gel going on. I also look for a sense of humor, because there's a lot of times in advertising that there are these high emotions and the high blood pressure that happens. And you got to be able to roll with the punches too. So I need somebody that's responsible, who's going to show up every day. I can count on them, and that can laugh when things get a little bit twisted.
That's good.
A couple last questions before I turn it back to you folks. What book, article, movie, theater, museum exhibit, one that you would recommend to them that they should be consuming?
To help with their career, just in
To help with
general.
their career.
Oh. The 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Okay,
a
you
good
guys
one.
should be
It's a good
writing
one.
all this stuff
It's a good
down.
one.
God knows, show it to me afterwards too, because I can get it. Go ahead.
Any book by Clayton Christensen, which is The Jobs to Be Done. It's such a simple framework. You can apply it to any area of your life, but especially in business. So like, why do you get hired is a great one.
This is totally silly, but you should see the movie Working Girl with Melanie Griffiths at some point. Is that here's somebody who just was kind of passionate and inspired about getting into a business that nobody thought she could get into, and she played her cards right, and it's a fun movie to watch, but it just kind of gives you a little bit of inspiration that, wait a minute, I can do these kind of things too.
It's good. It's a good one.
I got nothing.
Okay.
I don't go to reading things. I guess I go to podcasts. Anything that tells you, Fresh Air has a lot of great podcasts and like how stuff works. Being aware of what's going on, that gets your brain thinking outside of what you're doing, which isn't necessarily going to get you the job. So I don't know if I've answered that correctly, but I go to, like, if you're going to do anything, do things that make you think a little bit outside of your specific box.
Actually, I got one. So since you mentioned podcasts, one of my favorite podcasts is How I Built This.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a great
Amazing
one.
podcast, and it just kind of really shows these people that you see that are super famous and rich and all this, the journey that they went on. I was thinking like the Tom's guy. He had a whole story way before Tom's, and so it's like 30 minutes in before you even get to Tom's, and so it's just like everybody's journey is so different, and what you want to do in your 20s might be different than what path we went, and so I would listen to that, and and maybe someone's story may resonate with you.
So before we open up to their questions, anything you want to say to them that I haven't pulled out of you? Okay.
So being the career monogamist, I stayed mostly in, I had jobs before Google. I only looked like I started when I was 10. But I was in the same core group and moved up the ladder. but in this same group for most of my time, and I wish I would have moved to different cross-functional groups in the org earlier in my career and taken that risk when I could have. So if you're going into advertising, or marketing, different groups within marketing every 2 to 3 years. I wish I had done that earlier.
I want to respond to that. It's so interesting you say this. We had Pat Waters here on campus, who's the who's the head of HR for LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, being the site that they are and the company that they are, has a tremendous amount of data. And one of the things that she was telling us is that they have learned that the people who succeed most and move up are those who move every 3 years. And so in her own search for employees, she says if she sees somebody who has stayed in the same job for 5 to 7 years, she knows that they are not the right person for LinkedIn. She said up until the age of about 35 or so. Then after that, she says you expect people to stay. She said, but up until that point, she says, people should be moving and getting experience. Now, I don't know whether you all agree with that or not. But anyway, regardless of that, let me turn this back to you folks. Who has questions? I'm going to give you numbers to ask. Raise your hands, otherwise we can't say. Folks, you cannot be timid in this industry. 1,
Wait,
2.
we already handed the mic to somebody, Gary. She has to be one.
No, hold on. They're going to get numbers. You're back. I have to keep this right.
It's real time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anybody else have their hand up that hasn't been called on? If you haven't been called, if you haven't been given a number, tell me. 8, 9, 10.
Back left.
Okay. Anybody else? 11. We're going to stop there. Number 1. Go ahead.
Hi, so I'm really glad that you guys come here and spending time to talk to us. And I have a question. So when you're hiring for your team, what skill sets or qualities do you look for in those candidates? And which ones do you think are the most important?
Okay, wait, hold on, guys. A rule. A question is no longer than 30 seconds. An answer is no longer than a minute. Okay, good.
I think what Doug said, which is how you present yourself, confidence, passion, bringing your personal life into why all of those skills and attributes and how you are will apply to the company, like Joe said.
Anybody else have an answer they want to give to this? Okay, number 2.
Currently, customers are co-creation contents with professionals. So to some extent, professionals are losing their controls and to the products or the brands or the ideas. So how can you maintain the quality and the idea that you still want the quality, but you still want engagement?
So are you talking about like influencers versus larger sponsorships? So an influencer versus share?
No.
Or a brand?
Yeah, so the brands nowadays are co-created with customers. So
customers are telling the story for a brand as much as the brand's telling the story.
Yes.
Wendy's chicken nuggets and like Nike, there's dozens of examples. I would say that brands want advocates and people who are speaking on their behalf when it's positive, going back to a social platform that's very public and open and YouTube. And so I would say you can't control every comment, but finding those power users, those influencers, those brand advocates is wildly important, which is why you see customers in Toyota commercials, or you see influencers who have made content and HP loved it, so now they're on television in a 30-second spot. So I don't know how you can control it other than finding those advocates and influencers and the brands being able to also elevate when a customer speaks to their brand. So on Twitter, for example, and Doug's familiar, you can whitelist, meaning if someone says something great about the movie Mamma Mia 2, he can actually whitelist, get approval from that tweet, and then use that to advertise to go target other audiences. So it isn't Universal Pictures telling the message, it's actual people who love the movie and are talking favorably about the film and use that as the message. So you're right, it's all one and the same. but I'm not sure how to control it. Other
And
than
at companies
the
over the last couple of years, more and more time and effort has been spent in the coffers of those companies figuring out how do you engage consumers in your strategy and your plans. So it may seem like all of us consumers are in control of the brand, but the brand has an active hand in it. At the end of the day, the brand's on the hook for that product and that experience, and they're engaging with consumers more than we may even see or realize.
Question number 3.
Thank you. Hi, I just also want to introduce myself. I'm Xandra. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you for coming. I'm going to do a different question since I feel like the other one was addressed, but we were just talking a little bit about standard interview procedure, but I was wondering if someone were to do something outside of the box in the context of an internship, would it be received well?
You have interns. You talk.
I think it depends on what it is. It's like, I always like creativity. I like to see something that really demonstrates what you do. And sometimes it might be how your resume is presented, and it could be in a different format than just the standard resume. But I think if you put yourself too far out there and it's not packaged well, it can go really, then you're not going to get the second interview. And so I think you just have to be really smart about it. And but I like to see things break through if the right moment for you to do that.
Question number 4.
Hi, first of all, thank you all for being here, and I'm Wang Mei. I'm actually a graduate student here. My question is, actually I've changed my major like 3 times just to want to find which career path I want to pursue. I've been in the creative side of this industry. I've been like journalist intern and also like account intern, and now I'm in market research. So I'm really wondering if there is a role that can combine research and creativity. So yeah, that's my question.
Research.
I know at Universal, our head of research is responsible for creative as well. And so he's looking at all the data, all the focus groups, all the testing, but then is also advising on how we can update our creative spots so that we are actually showing those moments from a film that are going to resonate. So I think it's industry specific, but there are definitely roles that will play to your strengths, and it might be industry, or it just might be how you create that role for yourself too.
Exactly, how you create that role. And you're not always going to find the perfect mix or the intersection of everything you have, so you kind of have to weigh those options, jump into a role, and years down the road create it or find something else.
And I think for us at Toyota, I know when we're doing our commercial spots and things of that sort, we'll have research, creative, media, social media, everyone in the room looking at the work, giving our input from our various different perspectives in order so that we all, deliver on the best quality work, period.
Number 5. You have to say something. Here I am.
Sorry. Hi, thanks for coming. I'm actually a graduate, class of 2011. So question for you on marketing and technology. MarTech has become this new kind of hybrid field, and I'm more of a marketing generalist, and sorry if this is kind of specific to me, but as there's all these new specialties in marketing with SEO, PPC, all these new kind of avenues and branches of marketing, do you still think that there is a path for the marketing generalist?
I think depends on what company you're at, because at Toyota, I think, I've been there 16 years, my entire career. And so Toyota, you can get away with being a generalist there, and you can try a lot of different things, whereas there's some companies that, they're looking for more specialists. So I think it's depending on the company, where...
Same. Yeah, I mean, at Twitter we have business marketing, and it's vertical specific, yet we looked for horizontal marketers for those roles because they may not always be on automotive or entertainment, and they might have to help on a project that's political and advocacy. So that team is actually looking for more horizontal marketers, even though you're sitting in a vertical for some time, but playing a role with others.
I mean, I'd like to... again, with the interns, and that's more general because they're just being exposed, but because of how my team is structured, I've got people that are creative building websites and ads, and somebody else that's buying media and looking at media plans, and somebody else is doing all the social posts, and somebody else is data analytics. I think you have to have at least a starting point as to kind of what is your interest to get you in the door. I want the team to be generalists though, so there's a lot of cross communication, want them to pollinate against each other, but you've got to kind of know what is going to be, I'm a copywriter, that's going to be my starting path, and I'm going to get up the ladder that way. But I think if you just paint yourself too general, then to me it's a little bit of, wait, what do you want to do? Where do you want to land? And so have at least some direction to where you want to go.
6. Number 6. Number 7.
We've talked briefly about influencer marketing and influencer programs tonight. Over the last couple of years, or I guess recently, several lifestyle brands and toy companies have talked about or questioning the ROI on influencer programs. From your perspective, I guess anyone up there, what are some characteristics of a strong influencer program compared to those that kind of fall flat?
Go for it. You're laughing. And you have some emotions.
Yeah, we work with a lot of influencers from everything from within a campaign on custom content or for Super Bowl or use an influencer. I don't know if it's necessarily, it wouldn't be the foundation of a campaign or your efforts, but it's nice as an additive. And then there's a lot of different challenges with it because there's, you can have an influencer with a big audience, but maybe their audience is overseas and it's only 20, for us, we're USA, Toyota USA, we're not global. So it's finding the right influencers that's going to give you the right reach, the right engagement for that particular model. And, it's been a challenge.
We've soured on influencers a little bit. They are definitely an industry, and some have huge reach. But unless it's organic, and organic meaning like somebody's a true fan of our film, I think their fans kind of read through it anymore and are not they're not really influencing them. And so, we had a contrast with like the movie Get Out, which we released earlier this year. And there were a lot of celebrities that just kind of embraced the themes, and they were posting. That was true influence for us, because that was really authentic, and it was coming from their voice. Trying to get somebody else to say, I saw the movie and it's really fun, you should go, that wasn't working. But when you had Chance the Rapper get up and say, this is a movie you should see, that really resonated. And so for us, it's finding that authentic connection versus just paying somebody to do it.
And I think it's about being very clear about an ROI. What is your return on investment? What are you looking for? If you're looking for engagement, it gets engagement. If you're looking for kind of selling cars or pushing, theater sales, there's a difference in how you get there. I think that we'll see the conversation change from influencers back to brand advocates, and we'll take what we've learned from influencers into brand advocates. I think that's a direction that I think people are, because there's a lot of companies that are soured on the idea of influencers.
Number 8. 2 hands are up for number 8.
Hi, my name is Selena, and I just want to say thank you for coming. So early on in the discussion, you were set with the scenario of what would you do in a brainstorming session with the Weinstein Company. And Quentin, you mentioned transparency is key for a company to follow through with this strategy. So my question is, how, from a communication standpoint, how do you balance that transparency but with strategy to reach your ultimate goal?
Well, I think with transparency, you can be transparent in saying, I don't have all the answers. This is my plan to get you the answers, and that might come 3 months, 6 months down the line. But I think it's get out ahead of something with a plan forward, and then following up with that, 3 months later with, we recognize the problem. Over the last 3 months, this is what we've worked in order to address it, and this is where we're at now, and giving them consistent communication from there.
We had a movie, A Dog's Purpose, which some of you may have seen. But we had a communication issue that came up that PETA had a video that was captured of one of the dogs that looked like it had been thrown into the rushing water. And if you actually got all the information, the dog was fine. It was a misfortunate kind of capture, and it was not reflective of what the entire set and the experience was. But we had to respond first and acknowledge that that video existed. And then we had to come up with a strategy for how do we address that, which was getting the director and the actual, we had people on set who were watching, the Humane Society was watching what was going on with the animals. So you do have to kind of acknowledge and respond, and then come up with, okay, what are we going to do to change the conversation and hopefully get people back on board again.
Suzanne, how much more time we got? Okay, so then we're going to stop at this point. You'll have a chance to ask them. Okay, so there's 9, 10, 11, and there was now a 12 back there. So let's go number 9.
Hi, my name is Freya, and I know that for a lot of marketing teams, especially maybe Joanne, Jennifer, and Brooke's teams, you guys deal with like a lot of clients on a daily basis, and I know that dealing with clients is difficult because their demands change all the time. And my question is, how do you like communicate, maybe negotiate with the client to find maybe the middle ground where they're satisfied with their expectations and their demands are also executable for the teams?
Yeah, I don't have, I like working with clients. They are the stewards of their brands and their companies, and we have a very humble response that we wouldn't have a job if we didn't have clients. So being able to partner with them and understand what are their business objectives and problems, what are their own constraints, and how can we help them? Or maybe we can't help them and there's a lot of value in just being honest and saying, we're just not the right fit for this particular thing. So that's the point of view I've always taken, and it doesn't ever feel like some weird kind of negotiation or back and forth.
I think you get closer with your clients when you are challenged and when you're being challenged and when you're dealing with the not so perfect circumstances, like Brooke said, like there's emotions and everyone, you know, their jobs are sometimes on the line. So I think it's take a deep breath and then being really honest in the response, whether you can help them or not, or if it's the answer they want to hear or not. And I think you pick up the phone versus email if there's ever a question.
Number 10.
Tone and
who's number 10?
And nothing.
Number 11. Number 11.
Hi, my name is Natasha. I'm actually an alumni class of 2011 as well. And I guess my question was, as someone who's actually been in the workforce for a couple of years in agency life, but looking to make the switch to go in-house and essentially change industries, do you have any suggestions of best practices that we should follow?
I've seen so many different stakeholders in business, from agency to client to platform to ad tech, all switching roles. So I think anything's possible, and you at times are hired because they want a different perspective or they want someone who's been on the other side. I would just stick with your resume, your skills, being confident and just saying, I know that I now want to get to this side of the business and here's why, and go for it.
I think if you can also think about how your skill set, and it's a little bit what Joanne said, it's like, I'm a good people person, I'm a good leader, I can manage my budgets really well. Like, how can those things be translated into the different industry? Because those are skill sets that everybody's going to need. So you may not have the exact market experience, but you have other skills that certainly you should be able to package up and sell yourself for.
Okay. There was one last question back there. You didn't get yours. You were number 8. Yes, you. Go ahead.
I think for many professionals in the communication business, every day is a different day for them, and every day they and you guys face different challenges and problems. So do you have any strategy to face and overcome these new problems that you have never experienced before?
You have to remain calm, because if you don't remain calm, you then become the problem, not the problem itself. And walking away for a hot minute and not reacting is a really valuable tool that anyone can use.
Okay. I think, Suzanne, I'm handing this over to you now.
Everybody, let's join me in thanking our fantastic panel moderators. So I'm going to ask all of you to exit and go upstairs to the reception while we take them behind and get their mics off and they'll meet you upstairs. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, stay right. Can I get a picture of you guys over here by the ThinkLA?
Absolutely.
Chris has my camera. Okay. Let's come around on both sides of the sign here. You're staying here with me on this side.
Lovely.
Okay.
Love it. Let's do it.
And your red works with the orange.
Perfect.
All right. We can move those chairs away a little bit there.
You obviously work with Paul.